Howard Stern says, F their freedom. I want the freedom to live. Calling on the government to mandate vaccines for everyone. He used to be the epitome of edge, didn't he? And now he is a sad, old, confused corporate shill. Oh, poor Howard Stern. I'm sure he can go cry with his hundreds of millions of dollars. No, he doesn't care about you. He cares about money. And hey, welcome to America. More power to him, I guess. But I can at least say this because, we're in America. What a loser. What a sad, pathetic old man. Is that really how you wanted to go out, Howard? Just sniveling and quivering like a pathetic little loser saying just whatever the state says. Ugh. So edgy, so confident, so powerful to just drop to your knees and lick the feet of the state and your corporate overlords. Aw. I'm sure Howard Stern doesn't care about what I have to say, nor does he care about a lot. I mean, the dude's super rich. He's on his radio show. He can do his thing. But let me tell you, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I always thought that was kind of a funny thing to say, right? It's from The Dark Knight, the Batman movie. It's a funny thing to say because I'm like, is it really true? It may be true for some people, but in this case, it is true. It is. And I don't mean in the literal sense like you literally die. Like, I don't know if they meant that in the movie. But Howard Stern could have ended his career on a high note, standing up for his values and saying, screw the cult, screw the establishment, I will always push back. But my friends, you need to understand the reality. Howard Stern was always a shill. He was always a loser. They allow him on TV and on the radio. He made money for them. Shock content was in. And now it's not in. And now you get to see the true colors of the people that you thought once stood up against the machine. I really do wonder what George Carlin would be like today. I mean, we can talk about Jon Stewart, who's still around. He's got a new show coming out. I thought his show was fantastic. Jon Stewart praised Project Veritas on more than one occasion. Because when you do good work, you do good work. Even with his opinions, even being a liberal guy, he still said, wow, look at the work they're doing. And he said, journalists, where are you? How are they doing such a good job? And then Jon Stewart, he retired from his show. And the Trump era began. And a lot of people wondered where he'd be. It's hard to say for sure. It really is. Jon Stewart defended Trump when it came to the 9/11 Victims Fund, and I think that shows he's a man of principle. Now he's starting to come back. We saw Jon Stewart on Colbert talking about lab leak hypothesis for COVID, and he said it sounds like a lab leak is where it's at. And Colbert was like, corporate chill. I wonder about George Carlin. At the same time, when Howard Stern was spewing racial slurs and insulting people, and being generally offensive, which was acceptable in the mainstream at the time, George Carlin was doing similar things. George Carlin has a bit from, I believe it's 1990 it was, where he just says every single racial slur imaginable. But George Carlin was also the guy who did the 7 words you can't say on TV and got arrested for it. And he kept pushing that line. And that is not pro-establishment. This dude was anti-establishment. It's really funny to see George Carlin's early work. So here's what happens, and we'll talk about why Howard Stern is pathetic. I tweeted that he was a loser, and boy, does that make people angry. I have people saying, like, don't mess with Stern, dude. Why? I'm 35. The dude's 67. Is he relevant to me in any way? I don't expect 18-year-olds, for the most part, to be watching my show. Somewhat. Now, we do really, really well, 18 to 54 in the Timcast key demo. And that's the key demo, I guess. But the bulk of viewers, I'd be willing to bet you're a 30-year-old dude, right? Because that's probably the average age of the people who watch my content. 30-year-old guys. Mostly between 24 and 55, is it? I think it is. But we do have a decent amount of 18 to 24 as well. But our 15-year-old's going to come out and be like, look, I'm 20 years older than a 15-year-old. Are they going to come out and start, being like, oh, Tim Pool, I watch his show? No, I don't expect them to. Now, what about Howard Stern, who's 67? Am I supposed to care that a bunch of old people are like, why are you being mean to Stern? He's rich. This is what happens. Let me tell you about your freedom, your rights. They exist. They're inalienable. Now, the government can infringe upon them, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. They do exist. So they can come out and try and lie and say, you have no rights and we can do whatever we want. And they're wrong. They're just tyrants and despots. And Howard Stern goes on his show and says he's mad because the unvaccinated people are making it harder for him. It's like, what are you scared of? I'll say a few things. Since when do we sacrifice the young for the old, right? We have young people who want to live their lives. We have young people who are healthy. Since when do we tell them to sacrifice their lives and well-being for the sake of some 67-year-old guy? No, I don't want 67-year-old guys to get sick. I don't want Howard Stern to get sick. Howard Stern's worth a lot of money. So you know what it is? It's that he comes out and he's just trying to say whatever he has to say to avoid getting canceled. That's sad and pathetic. Why would you even want to have a show if that was the case? Let me tell you about principle, all right? For someone like me. We're getting dangerously close to that line where YouTube will probably ban me. And people say, oh, it's not true. They'll never ban Tim. Well, this is one of the reasons we set up timcast.com. And we have independent membership helping fund my work as well as the shows we do. But just take a look at the conversation around livestock medicine and Joe Rogan. It starts getting dangerously close to the point where you get banned. Why? Because you have to, if you have particular opinions on scientific data, they'll ban you outright. Howard Stern saw that. And so he would rather be a shill for the state than to actually speak truth to power. Isn't that sad and pathetic? You know, I get it. Maybe there's a bunch of old people who are like, the state is the supreme authority and you should do what they say. And those are now the fans of Howard Stern. It's like that saying, you know, if you're not liberal when you're young, you have no heart. You're not conservative when you're old, you have no head. Maybe people just as they get older say, but I don't want freedom. I want safety and security. And I don't think that's true. George Carlin went out with a bang. He had a really great stand-up special where he said a whole bunch of really offensive things about the government and saying no to the state. I respect that. Howard Stern wants to go out with a whimper, with a crying, defeated whimper of, please, just tell me whatever I have to say. Oh, Howard Stern, you spineless, pathetic jellyfish. The iconic shot is from the New York Post. Shock Jock has typically strong opinions about the swelling list of outspoken anti-vaxxer media personalities, including radio hosts. Quote, when are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, you know, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Stern ranted. F them. F their freedom. I want my freedom to live. I want to get out of the house already. I want to go next door and play chess. I want to go take some pictures. Amazing. Recently, I drove 5 hours to central West Virginia where we played board games, and we played Cranium. Grabbed beer, played pool. No one needed any masks. There was no mask mandates. I took pictures, went more than next door, went to hiking trails, saw lots of people, went to there's this really great place where you could rent bikes and they had brats and gyros and things like that. And they had goats and it was a whole lot of fun. And nobody stopped me from doing it by being unvaccinated. So there you see it, right? This is the sad, pathetic nature of Howard Stern. I want my freedom to live. What makes you think that when you empower the state to curtail people's freedoms, they would do anything for you? You're confused, old man. Old and confused, well past your prime. It's time for retirement, Howard. I get it. You're on Sirius. They haven't, my understanding is they haven't released. I tried looking up his viewership numbers. Haven't found them. I know that they say 35 million subscribers to Sirius. What does that mean? YouTube has billions of subscribers. Am I going to be like, I have a prominent show, one of the top podcasts on a network with billions of subscribers? Oh, okay. Howard Stern has 35 million subscribers on Sirius. Doesn't mean they watch his show. I can't imagine it. You know, he's become anti-edge. I'm going to show you something. I want to talk about Howard Stern's legacy. Here's an article from the Right Scoop. Howard Stern says N-word too many times during awful blackface impression that should have libs yelling cancel. I had to remove the image of what he did. The image that he produced is so shocking and offensive, YouTube would certainly punish me for showing it. And which puts us in a bit of a conundrum. You see, Howard Stern could say something like, they're going to get pissed off at me if I talk about this, but you know what? Some things need to be said. Or he could say, I'll tell you what, On Sirius, they don't want us talking about certain subjects, and they'll shut the show down. So go to my website, and we'll put it all up there. You can see it all. I tweeted it out. So go to Twitter. My Twitter handle @Timcast if you want to see the photo. But that's the harsh reality. Now that I understand is a rock and a hard place, and I sympathize with this position. Do I just get this video shut down, or do I just say the words and then you'll have to go find the photo yourself? It's the best I can do, and I apologize for it. And it's not an issue of my principle. It's an issue of being able to say Howard Stern is a pathetic loser. Otherwise, I just don't make the video. No, that's dumb. Now, in this article, they point out Howard Stern did this. Don Jr. tweeted it out, which brings me to this article from CNN. Howard Stern responds to controversy over resurfaced blackface performance. He says, the ish I did was effing crazy. I'll be the first to admit I won't go back and watch those old shows. It's like, who is that guy? But that was my shtick. That's what I did, and I own it. I don't think I got embraced by Nazi groups and hate groups. They seemed to think I was against them, too. Everybody had a bone to pick with me. The offensive sketch is from a pay-per-view New Year's Eve special in which Stern and his longtime co-host Robin Quivers satirized the Friars Club roast of Whoopi Goldberg in 1993. It was Ted Danson wearing blackface, and it was supposed to be Howard Stern, I guess, making fun of him, saying things like, oh, I can say these words and these jokes because Whoopi wrote it. Danson reflected on the moment in 2009, calling it a graceless moment. Stern went on to say that if he had a chance to do it all over again, he wouldn't have worn blackface. Lie. Quote, if I had to do it all over again, would I lampoon Ted Danson, a white guy in blackface? Yeah, I was lampooning him and saying, I'm going to shine a light on this. But would I go about it the same way now? Probably not. Not probably. I wouldn't, he continued. That's a lie. The fact that Howard Stern did it and it makes him famous. He wouldn't be here if not for being an edgelord in the 90s. I mean, he's the guy who creates the trope of firing hot dogs at women in bikinis and stuff like that. Okay? He was not a good moral guy, and he isn't now. He's a loser. And you want to know why I say he's a loser? I'm not saying that he hasn't been successful. Of course he has. I'm saying that he's got no core, no integrity. He's meaningless. He's a crap stain on the wall of history. Of course, he had a popular show. Of course, he had popular things. But he was an establishment shill then. He's an establishment shill now. Don't make the mistake of thinking he's changed or evolved. No, he hasn't. He says exactly what makes him money and always has. Edgy comedy was big. George Carlin made it big, among others. Lenny Bruce. And then you get people like him. They rode the wave. But he is just a loser who just siphoned off of the talent and drive of truly passionate people pushing the envelope. I don't think Howard Stern did. I think he just followed suit and said, people like this stuff? Ooh, I can do that. Look at Sarah Silverman. She's an edgelord too, or at least she used to be, until she got canceled for doing blackface. Howard Stern knows this, so he disavows. Sarah Silverman did a blackface sketch. She lost a movie role over it. Howard Stern knows they will gut him and destroy his career unless he drops to his knees and licks their feet and says, please, I'll do anything you say. Talk about a loser. That's what being a loser is. Oh, come on. You made money doing it. Good for you. That's great. I hope you know, when you're crying at night, you can wipe away your tears with your $100 bill, sleep in a bed full of money. I can respect the hustle. But for me, you know, I'm more concerned about is integrity, honor, you know, the person, the experience, the ideas, money. You know, money can get you a lot of things, but social currency is more powerful in a lot of ways. I'll tell you this. If Howard Stern, I'll show you the tweet I put up and you can see the division. There are desperate people who just desperately want to like Howard Stern. Their response to me when I call him a loser is, yeah, well, he's rich and you're poor. Let me show you this. This is really, really funny. So I said, Howard Stern is such a loser in response to a story from The Hill where he rips vaccine opponents. And this is what you get. This guy on Twitter says, counterpoint, Howard can buy a home. And then they show Howard Stern's multi-year deal, which was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Then a tweet from me saying I got denied a loan for a small single family home. And then a story about my news site collapsing. All right. My counterpoint was there's a video from April of my $1 million skate mansion. This is what they have. This is their counterpoint. Howard Stern gives up on everything that made him popular and prominent, being edgy, telling the establishment to shove off. And their response is, yeah, well, at least he's rich. I literally don't care. And that's why I'm rich. I mean, that's the secret. If I went around whining and complaining about other people all day and wishing I was Howard Stern, I probably would not be successful. But when I come out and I stay true to my values and speak my mind and do my thing and focus on it, regardless of viewers or money, you become successful. I'll give you some advice, right? I'll give you some of my perspective and stuff. You know, I was taking a look at Timcast IRL, which is the podcast we do every night, 8 p.m. Check it out. Go to timcast.com, be a member. You'll see a lot of these segments. And we recently, our podcast has been breaking into the iTunes top podcasts consistently, like biggest podcasts in the world, the top 250. We hit around, like, I think the peak position was 104, which is massive. I don't really expect to be number one. It's not my concern, and it never was. My goal was never to be Joe Rogan or have a number one podcast. It was just to do things I want to do and have these conversations. I was looking at these numbers, and they've been higher, and they go down a bit. Depends on the season. I think with the midterm elections, the primaries, and then the presidential election in 2024, our viewership is going to skyrocket, but that's irrelevant. When we started the podcast, we were getting only a few thousand viewers. Literally only a few thousand. I wasn't doing it because I was like, we got to get more views. I got to make money. I was like, I enjoy sitting around talking about this stuff with other people. That's it. And as we did that, the show got better and better and better. I am not going to, I can certainly go back and say, maybe I was wrong about that. And so to a certain degree, I can say of Howard Stern being like, look, I did it. I own it. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't go that far. I'd say as a product of the times, we did what we did. The content I made for Vice, we did what made sense. I stay true to my values and what I believe, and I won't sacrifice freedom and liberty simply because there's a mob coming after me, like Howard Stern would. But I love that their only counterpoint is not that Howard Stern sold out his values, but that I'm not rich. As if to imply the real goal of my work and your work and anyone else's is to sell out, give up on freedom, liberty, and challenging the machine and speaking truth to power, and just give in and take the paycheck. No, I kind of did the opposite. I got hired by ABC News, Univision, and got paid a crap ton of money. And I said, I don't want to do this. I don't care about your money. I want to do things that I'm passionate about and that I believe in. And so I left and I started my own thing. And now I'm doing particularly well. And full disclosure to these people, when they're like, here's Tim Pool saying he can't get a loan for a small single family home. Yo, that's like not my only house. That's the point. The point was that I'm rich. I should be able to just go in and say, I want to get a loan for a house. And they should be like, right away, sir. But they denied me under false pretenses. The point I was bringing up with that was that, and again, full disclosure, not bragging or anything. I don't need a loan. Literally do not need a loan to buy this house. It's just stupid to not do, within reason. The point was at the time, it seemed like to a lot of people it was impossible to get a loan on homes unless you were a massive corporation. That seems to be the problem. And of course, now they're turning that into like, aha, well, you're poor. Dude, if that's your metric of being good and being successful, then you've got problems. And it's no surprise these people shill for Howard Stern, a corporate shill who sold out. Michael Malice says, the first time I encountered Howard Stern was when he had Roger Ebert on his Channel 9 show and was asking Ebert if he ever pretended to be the slave master in bed with his wife. Then there's this. His comments speak for themselves. Howard also enjoyed making fun of how mopey Scott the engineer was, even when his wife was privately fighting cancer. Scott went broke and started a GoFundMe for medical expenses. Howard, who was worth $500 million, didn't contribute. Scott was fired soon after 30 years. Yeah, because Howard Stern is a spineless scumbag. I'm not going to talk about the private charity that I engage in, but I will tell you this. You'll probably notice, if you ever paid attention, that there are many GoFundMes that I am giving to all the time. And isn't it really interesting how so many people who are claiming to be liberals or leftists don't give? Bernie Sanders gave almost nothing to charity. He's a millionaire. And then you find out all these conservatives and people on the right are giving charity left and right. It's really amazing how that plays out. Howard Stern's employee was fighting cancer and the dude worth $500 million couldn't do anything for her. These people are not on the left. Okay. And I think leftists would agree with me on this one. Howard Stern is an establishment crony corporate shill who will say whatever he has to say to make money, and he has no spine and doesn't care. And you know what? He's probably sitting there like laughing while throwing money in the air saying, I don't care what Tim Pool thinks. And that's fine because I don't care what Howard Stern thinks. Okay. The issue is the greater impact on culture and what people think. And Howard Stern is certainly a garbage symbol of garbage in our society. Michael says, he was completely groundbreaking and crossed the line on a daily basis. To watch an old man repudiate that which brought him this to prominence is tragic. That's indeed the case. And you can see, all the people who are so upset, so angry. Yeah, he's the loser. Yep. Now, it's interesting. The responses to me are mix and match. You've got some people who are like Howard Stern lost it, and some people saying, no, he's the best. Someone said, you're just trying to be controversial to drum up likes. What? I'm pretty sure anybody who's followed me on Twitter is like, yeah, Tim's not trying to get followers anytime soon. It's amazing. I tweet stuff like I'm pro-choice, and then I get anger from everybody. I can literally tweet that I'm pro-choice, and leftists yell at me and call me pro-life. I had one guy call me anti-vax and pro-life, and I'm like, yo, I literally said last night mRNA technology is brilliant and amazing, and I think vaccines are wonderful. And I literally said, I'm pro-choice, yeah, sorry, but these people are insane. They have counter-dependent identities. And so the only way they can view the world is if my guy says something and you're opposed to him, you believe everything that I don't. Because they're insane. That's the reality of where we're at. I could easily just come out and be like, I sat down with Glenn Beck 2 years ago and now I'm pro-life. Hey, look at that. And I didn't. And I won't. Because I'm sitting here thinking about this stuff. And every single time I come to the argument, life versus choice, I'm just like, I cannot envision empowering the state. I can't do it. And there's interesting things because there seems to be a moral conundrum in some things I can empower the state to do. I'm like, man, that really is difficult to have to understand the true morality, what is right, what is wrong. It's almost impossible. It's the only thing I can say. Only thing I can say is ultimately in the end is like, wow, honestly, I just don't know. I don't have all the answers. I just know that there's something deep within me that there's limits on. Like, I don't like the idea of people discriminating on the basis of race and gender and national origin. I like the Civil Rights Act. But that also raises interesting questions about gender segregation in bathrooms based on laws about how they treat, women's night, ladies' night at bars. I'm like, wow, how do we have a consistent policy position? And maybe we don't. Maybe there's just always going to be some things we accept and some things we don't accept because not everything is identical to each other. To put it simply, just say it. Be honest. And I'll tell you the world we live in. The world we live in is where Larry Elder, a black man, can be attacked by a leftist in a gorilla mask throwing eggs, and the media doesn't care. People like Howard Stern, they're the establishment left. And these young leftists march behind them, and it's sad, really. You want to talk about universal healthcare? Hey, I'm in favor of it. I'm not entirely convinced we can implement it in the U.S. because of people like Howard Stern and because of these crackpots throwing eggs. So I don't know if it can be done. But I am for it 100%. And I can argue all day and night about why it's great. The only problem, reality is different from ideology. Idealism and realism are two different things. And so long as you have crackpot losers like Howard Stern who just say whatever the mob demands of them, there's no structure by which we can base new policies. So, I'll end with this. Howard Stern is an irrelevant old man. He is not relevant to me, a 35-year-old, a millennial. Perhaps Gen Xers, I'm pretty sure he's a boomer. Gen Xers probably listen to him. Boomers listen to him, and they're the ones who still do, if they do. I'm sure there are young people who do listen to him, probably a lot of these establishment leftist shills who are in a cult, who seem to think that if you oppose, it's really amazing. They're for mandates and lockdowns. I am not. Therefore, I must be pro-life. No, I'm not. I'm pretty consistent on this one. No vaccine mandates, and the abortion law in Texas is bad. Well, there you go. They have no answer for it. I can tell you one thing. One thing I can respect is that even if I disagree with people on the right, seems to be that they'll engage honestly and say, Tim, you're wrong about this. I can go on Timcast IRL Live and say, I don't think ivermectin is effective. I think there's conflicting studies. I think there's promising studies, but ultimately I don't know. The FDA has not issued an emergency use authorization, which would not, harm the vaccines in any way. I don't think that argument makes sense. And people simply respond with, Tim, I think you're wrong. And I say, okay, well, I respect that. And if you think I'm wrong, then by all means, go and talk to someone you trust and find a doctor. Isn't it amazing that I can disagree with these people, but so long as I'm not lying about horse dewormer, then all of a sudden they're willing to have a conversation. But the people who follow Howard Stern, they don't live in that reality. And these are the people that are burning this place to the ground. Whatever, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.